Am I the asshole? For kicking my SIL out for making my drunk husband feel like shit? My SIL, her husband and her kid are staying with me and my husband for the next week because there's a family funeral and all hotels were booked out for the Bluegrass Fest and Kane Brown concert. We have a big farmhouse so it's not big deal, but SIL is very opinionated. My SIL and my husband have different fathers. Her dad died from liver failure 10 years ago and his death date just passed by not too long ago. He was a massive alcoholic and due to this, my SIL turns into a bitch whenever she sees anyone drinking, especially people in her family. Well, my husband who isn't a big drinker went out with friends last night as kind of a last hurrah because we will be welcoming our first daughter into this world in about a month and he just wanted to celebrate his becoming of a dad. I encouraged him to go. I arranged for his Uber back home and he came in around 11 p.m. last night. He was very drunk. He walked in the door singing Let's Stay Together by Al Green, dancing, spinning me around the living room floor in some very sloppy waltz and laughing the whole time as he was tripping all over himself. Now, my dad is an alcoholic too. So I get it, but honestly, I was having a fucking blast with my drunk husband. SIL comes into the room and just starts laying into my husband about him drinking. Screaming about how he was going to turn out just like dad, etc. etc. At this point my husband's mood is dead. He's crying. I lost it. I told her how he turn out like a POS when that POS isn't his father. Get out of my house right now and don't ever come back. She immediately went quiet and said she couldn't take her daughter out at this time of night and that no hotels had vacancy and my husband knew better than to drink around her and I told her that's not my problem. Leave. The whole family is pissed at me and my husband right now for both him drinking in front of SIL and me kicking them out at midnight. Am I the asshole? ETA I never said her daughter or her husband had to leave. I told her she had to. She chose to wake them up and drag them with her after she caused problems. Not the asshole. She needs to see a therapist. Her projecting anger onto other people when it's not warranted is a reflection of her unhealed trauma. Not the asshole. She interferes in your family life, insulted your husband and did not even apologize, just whinnied about no vacancy. SIL comes into the room and just starts laying into my husband about him drinking. Screaming about how he was going to turn out just like dad, etc. Not the asshole. She's using the situation as an excuse to abuse someone. She has options if she's distressed, like crying, walking away, or going to her husband for support. Not the asshole. Not even a tiny bit. Hell, you're the type of partner that a guy would be lucky to have. You let him go and hang with his buddies to celebrate, you celebrated with him when he came home happy drunk, and you defended him fiercely when he needed it. It is also obvious he doesn't have a drinking problem, that he just had fun responsibly. You got him an Uber home, so your SIL needs to get some help with her very obvious mental issues and not equate one night of your husband having fun to what her dad was. SIL is the true asshole here for stressing out a pregnant woman. Not the asshole. Why don't guests act like guests on this site? Every other Am I the asshole? Is about people being allowed to stay with this or that OP who then take the first chance to throw a tantrum, turn the household upside down, steal, etc. She walks in, sees a married couple having fun with each other, and immediately seizes the opportunity to scream and belittle and attack. Upside next time, she will know better than even to ask to stay. With luck, you'll never hear from her again. Esh. She immediately went quiet and said she couldn't take her daughter out at this time of night and that no hotels had vacancy and my husband knew better than to drink around her and I told her that's not my problem. Leave. I never said her daughter or her husband had to leave. I told her she had to. These statements conflict. Even if they didn't, they likely had one car. Was she supposed to sleep in her car and leave her husband and daughter stranded? She was over the line, but not to the point of putting her outside without shelter for the night. He didn't drink in front of SIL. He went out with his friends to have a last blast, which was planned. So SIL knew about it. You were enjoying yourself in your OWN living room. SIL was a guest in your house. She shouldn't transfer how her father was to your husband. She also should have kept her opinion to herself. Not the asshole. Not the asshole, she made a man cry in his own home. Are you writing because your husband called you an AH for kicking his sister and family out in the middle of the night after he sobered up and you need some validation? Just curious. Both you and the SIL were showing AH qualities, LOL. You only did it in response to SIL, and in defense of your husband. Your SIL did it due to past trauma and unresolved issues that she needs to deal with. You didn't need to kick her out entirely at 11 p.m. knowing full well there are no hotels, so she'd literally have nowhere to go. That was over the line and punishing the kid who did nothing wrong. You know she's not gonna leave alone, so saying you only booted her feels like weaseling. Light her ass up, tell her off, and send her to her room, and say they've got to be out in the morning would have been more reasonable. Not the asshole. She FANFO. Don't disrespect people who invite you into their home. Not the asshole. Your house, your husband, your family's rules. She has no right to control what your husband does and really no right for yelling at him. 11 p.m. isn't even that late, it's not like this was 2 a.m. and going on for an hour or more. Why are you pretending like she could have just left without her kid and husband? That's completely unrealistic. You kicked them all out. Whether or not you should have done is a different question. Did you have the right to kick her out? Sure. But you could have just kept it as a threat and de-escalated it when she started bargaining. She's clearly having some kind of irrational response due to her history with alcohol. You could have given her time to cool down and have her feel remorse later. Enforcing an ultimatum like that made it super difficult for reconciliation later, which would likely strain your SIL and husband's relationship further. I don't understand the not the asshole votes here. You were most definitely an asshole. This sub isn't about whether or not being an asshole is justified. You ask if you were an asshole to your SIL. You were. That could have been handled better, by both parties. You immediately went nuclear on her. There was no attempt at calm discussion. You didn't try to calm her down and reason with her. She fired. You returned fire. You had more leverage, and you used all of it. You're an asshole. Not the asshole. SIL has no right to be cruel like that. Your husband has rare blast and it seems he was completely cute drunk. And that is said by someone who either hate regular or heavy drinking. I hope you let the kid stay. SIL handled her brother's drunkenness poorly. You handled SIL poorly. I never said her daughter or her husband had to leave. I told her she had to. She chose to wake them up and drag them with her after she caused problems. Bullshit. When she said that she couldn't take her daughter out at that time of night, you responded, not my problem. Not to mention everyone in their right mind would think that get out of my house and never come back would absolutely apply to SIL and her family. That's on you, not SIL. Was she wrong to do what she did? Yes. Were you wrong for putting a little girl and her mother, both of whom are family, out on the street at midnight? Absolutely. Could you have walked back kicking her out after she showed contrition? For sure. Should you have? Absolutely. No question. Don't let the 20-years-old crowd in this thread assuage you of the absolutely warranted adult guilt you are feeling for messing this up. Could have told her to be out in the morning. Kicking them out at midnight for a verbal row is excessive. Info: what did your husband think of your